Good day, everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of the All Things Spirituality with Thozi Theko. This is not an interview. This is a conversation between two people. Me getting to know about the next person, her beliefs, her spiritual views. So today I have our guest. She goes by the name Thozi. She's a family constellation facilitator, and she is very big on spirituality. How are you, ma'am?
Hey, Jalurbalana, Cyril. Lovely to be here, and thank you for inviting us.
Thanks a lot. It's been long awaited. I've been waiting to sit down with you, hear your story. Yeah. So to start, I wanted to know, what are your beliefs? Are you Christian? Are you Muslim? Or you believe in the ancestors or what?
I would say I'm a spiritual seeker. My understanding, my knowing is that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And so seeking to reconnect with that for me is quite important. Yet I've already seen the benefits of that. I find that religion is good. It's mostly a start for people, for many people. It could be a door that leads you to spirituality. And when we just stay in the religion itself, I don't think we're serving our whole selves. So opening that door and moving into connecting with who we truly are as spiritual beings, for me, I think it's crucial. Wow. And my work is about supporting people in that.
Wow, that's powerful. So how do you find yourself through spirituality?
In the knowing first that we are spiritual beings. And then you say, what is it that resonates with me? And that is, listen to that part. When the sentence is said that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, you say, okay, this is the human experience. And won't I want to know the depth of who I am? So you start by doing that. And your spiritual self, your soul self, is likely to lead you to your spiritual path. And I would say to you, I was a pastoral assistant in a church environment in the inner city, working with homeless and unemployed people. And the heart connection with that work was seeing beings like me having, a temporary challenge, and asking myself, what is it that we are doing? As a church, we were serving soup, and we were creating an environment for them to be comfortable in their seeking employment, seeking to transform their lives. And I was then exposed to the Inca spirituality, interestingly enough. The Inca tradition and their Andean spirituality through visitors that came to our church, and not invited as a church group, but as a spiritual group. And my exposure to the Andean spirituality flooded memories of my Africanness. And I found it interesting and odd that I grew up in a township in Gatlaho. I didn't see my family members or my elders doing anything traditional that much. I didn't see that growing up. And yet, the flooding of memories, of knowing, they spoke of the 4 elements: Mother Earth, the air, water, and fire, and the power of these elements. And there was memory inside of me that thought, I know this. And when we hear ourselves, when we hear our spirit speak to us in that way, then spirit can take you to the next level, to that which you need to go to. Because soon after that, or the process thereafter, was that exposure to the Andean tradition got me invited to speak on African spirituality. Just because I would say to people, this reminded me of my Africanness. And so that's how I started doing talks on African spirituality.
Wow, interesting. So you left the church?
I left the church.
Why? Because it didn't teach you about African spirituality? Because Christianity, sorry to say this, but Christianity is based on like the Western teachings. So you left the church because of?
I would say my spirit led me to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. When we connect ourselves, like I started by saying, religion is limited in that, yes, it's a door that can open up for you and lead you to your spirituality. So therefore, I wouldn't say I left. I moved forward. And moving forward meant that I not only did I sought to find the African teachings, I connected also with indigenous knowledge systems.
Which is?
Indigenous knowledge system, it's a knowledge, a world knowledge.
Like
and
talking to your ancestors and
it's a knowing of what did our forebearers know. And what did they know is they practiced certain things and they saw them working. They were conscious of what nature is informing us. They were conscious of that. And they put together a collection of knowledge. And indigenous knowledge, you find it in many indigenous cultures. So when you talk indigenous cultures, you're not only talking African cultures. You're talking your Andean, you're talking your Indian, you're talking American, North American indigenous knowledge system, your New Zealand knowledge of the first people of the land, your Australian Aboriginal people, it's indigenous knowledge system.
So the one you chose is the Andean?
The one I chose is my African self. That was just another door that reminded me. So I think when we listen to our spirituality, it will lead you to that which you are. When you talk of the Southern Africa, you're talking of your sand people that were the first people of this part of the land. And when you're talking of the other parts of Africa, you may be talking of, Central Africa, the Bantu knowledge systems. When you talk of something north, you're talking the ancient Egyptian knowledges of people. So indigenous knowledge system is a collection of knowledge of the first people.
So that collection, where do you find it? Because like with the Christianity, there's a Bible, and with the Muslim, there's a Quran, and then with the African spirituality collection.
You're coming back to religion. Yes, religion is a structured system.
So it's not a spirituality.
It's, maybe people may call it that, but it is religion. And it is designed by individuals. It's designed by people. But indigenous knowledge system is people that listen to and watch what nature is teaching. You know, so listening authentically without any agenda of forming an organization, making money, benefiting in any way, but to say, how do we live harmoniously on earth, with earth and everything that is in it, and with one another, harmoniously living. You know, many of the indigenous systems look at the stars even. What are they informing us? What are the moon cycle informing us? What is the sun telling us?
That's powerful.
So, yes, the book is nature itself.
So someone from the Western culture or the European culture can also practice the indigenous spirituality. Or it's only for us African people?
I think people who desire to truly know and connect with their spirituality do.
Also, color doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter. Because what I tend to hear people of other race refer to nature spirituality. You know, that, which is the same thing, is that what is nature telling me? What is nature telling us? And when we have that desire to learn from nature, and then we get together, you know, your wisdom and my wisdom and the other person's wisdom becomes a collective wisdom. And seekers who truly want to connect with their spirituality would do that. What do I know? What is my environment informing me of? And what can other people teach me?
That's powerful. So I wanted to know, like, what do you think happens to your I know your body when you die goes down the ground, get buried, and then your soul. What happens to your soul?
Okay.
Or also your soul is dead when you die. What happens to them?
Let's talk family constellation, for instance.
Okay. What is family constellation?
Family constellation is a process that helps people bring harmony to their system. And a family is a system. And if we know, or if we're conscious, a system is an interconnectedness of several members, right?
Yeah.
So any system, your computer system, a machine has parts that have to work together, right?
Yeah.
A family is a system also. And their parts belong in the right place. And when they're sitting properly, there's harmony. And I'm leading to that question that you have. So a family is made, at a basic level, is made of mother, father, and children, right? And mother and father were also children at some point, so they have their mother and father, right?
Yeah.
And those also have their mother and father,
yeah.
Right? Okay. When we are conscious of that, the fact that I am here through those two people, and they were here because of the other two people. And those two people were here through other two people. And life continues that way. You know, you might come together with a partner and bear some children.
Yeah.
And life goes on.
Yeah.
Let's start there. That life goes on means that you carry the people that have come before you.
like the DNA or?
In the DNA, scientifically, and when we are conscious that Africans and indigenous people have always looked at science and nature together, they never separated spirituality from science, then we realize that science today is proving what they had known before. The great Sanusi Babu Credo Mutwa has spoken of Africans knowing that death is not the end. So death is not the end. It's a transformation. This person is just on the other side of the veil. Yes, you put this physical body that was having a human experience, and the spiritual part continues.
So it continues in what form? It goes back to someone else? How? Or maybe become an ancestor? It continues in what form?
Coming back to family constellation.
Yeah.
You know, as I said, it's a group process. You can do it one-on-one, but mostly we do it in groups where it's a group process where you can shift the discomforts that are inside you or within families. In that, in any system, when there's order means there's peace inside of me, and there's peace in my brother, in my sister, in my mother, in my father, in my grandparents. And no family has totally that kind of peace because we are connected. If a parent or an aunt or someone in the family has had a trauma and they have passed, someone current in the family may be carrying that trauma until it's dealt with. It's shifted. Other therapies may shift it, but what I know is a family constellation process that can shift that. How? We look at, does everybody belong or placed where they're supposed to be? In the indigenous knowledge system, in the African culture, a firstborn child is a firstborn child. A secondborn child is a secondborn. A third and lastborn is a lastborn. And those beings, they have their roles. You know, firstborns have certain responsibilities. Lastborns have certain responsibilities, and everyone in between. Mom has certain responsibility, roles, and dad, right? When somebody has been traumatized, let's say in the lineage before, in the generation before, and was forgotten, a child here will remind us that there was an aunt who was put in a mental institution and was forgotten about. How? It's the energy in how this child is carrying themselves, because they're entangled with the energy of that parent. And let me use a simpler example. I said firstborn is a firstborn, secondborn is a secondborn. In other families, a firstborn is born and dies. Another child is born. When that child doesn't know about the child before, may consider themselves a firstborn. And other parents really don't even talk about that child that passed. And they don't correct the perception of secondborn. And they leave it like that. And that spirit of that firstborn wants to be acknowledged. And once you acknowledge it, like so-and-so was firstborn, or you are secondborn, then you can rest in your energy. You are no longer entangled with your brother or sister before. You know, so if you were to look or ask your grandmother, your grandfather, they would tell you that even stillborn babies in African cultures are given a name, are given a place. When everyone in the family is placed accordingly, there's harmony.
I'm on Thozi deep. Yeah. But I'm learning. It's interesting learning that because I didn't see it in that manner.
Yeah.
So my question is, who comes to you as a family constellation facilitator? People who have experienced trauma, or people who are divorcing, or who comes to you as a facilitator?
It's anybody who wants some peace. And of course, when we want peace, we can seek that inner peace from different places. Some people will go to church, like, yeah, I know that God can help me, Yes. And others will go to a psychotherapist, right? People who know about family constellation, they come to say, I'm not sure what is it that I'm going through. Can you help me? Because the process helps you see the unfolding of the energy within your family. There's what every family, every group has a conscience. Again, going back to the fact that we are spiritual beings having this human experience, is that the thing called conscience.
Yeah.
It's alive. It's something that directs you. Then there's a collective conscience. Every group has that. So families have that energy is alive. And over and above that, there's also the consciousness of that collective family. What is their aspiration, their desire? Your family, for instance, and the people that have come before you, they aspire that you succeed in life. They aspire that you succeed in life. But we don't know this in this physical experience. We don't know this until we truly listen to what is soul and spirituality and my spirit guiding me to. And when you ask these questions, whether in silence or uyapahla or you pray, they will lead you to that which they aspire you to reach. And call that whole collective God or ancestor or great spirit, is that yes, there's all of that and the whole, which is, the oneness of our being, the collective of our being, so.
Interesting. So since you mentioned that in a family, it's a system, everybody has his own place, like the mother, the father, and the firstborn and the secondborn. What happens when there's no father? Like me, I was raised by a single mother. Does it affect the children, like the firstborn and the lastborn, or what happens when the system is not in place?
Yeah. It is a serious, painful experience. It is a wound. It is a disturbance. It is a disorder. That is not how families are to be. Taking a step back, life has what they call the law of gender. Everything in life has the female and the masculine energy, the feminine energy and the masculine energy. And our human experience and expression also has that, the female energy and the male energy.
Yeah.
Your inner being carries that. Your brain, for instance, there are so many things that remind us that I have the masculine power and the feminine power. Hence, single mothers can step up and hold the family. But it's not a whole picture. Single fathers can step up and hold the family, tapping into their own feminine energy, and mother and father those children. They may not breastfeed the child, but they would have the instinct that we only attribute to mothers.
So the mother can be a mother and a father at the same time.
We can all hold that. But is it good and healthy for children? I will tell you that
It's not.
it is not.
It's not.
It is not. And therefore, we have created, and going back again to indigenous knowledge systems, when within a family, the elders, when they notice that, when they see that a father has passed or the father has migrated to some place due to certain things, there were systems of an uncle stepping up and being that mentor. And that is what they can do in the physical world, right? And yet, the energy of your father, whether they are present with you or not, the energy of your father is with you, the energy of your mother is with you. Ours is to acknowledge that behind me, I am here on this planet because I came through these two people. When you acknowledge those energies, when you acknowledge that my father stands behind me on my right, my mother stands behind me on my left, you can start to breathe.
Acknowledging as saying it or
Whether you say it silent, but
or
you know,
live with it. How do you know?
yeah, because when we are being raised by a single parent, we tend to say, my father's not here,
Yeah.
right? And that's a disowning, you know. So when you say, I may not know what his problems may be, but I am here through him, and I am here through her. As a person, you can breathe.
So as a family,
When you start breathing, then you're bringing harmony inside of you. Right. And I spoke of the conscience of the group, of your family. Call them your ancestors, the spirit of the people in your lineage. When they hear you saying this, whether you say it silent or out loud, they support their father, absent as he may be. There's an energy that is sent to that being, whether we are conscious of it or we are not. And whatever his problems may be, because people who struggle to father is because they've had other problems. So then he might be inspired wherever he is. He might be inspired to acknowledge his own parents. And sometimes you can be even acknowledge it yourself because by saying, my father stands behind me, and behind him and behind my mother stand their parents. You are acknowledging your grandparents. When you acknowledge the grandparents' parents, you are acknowledging your great-grandparents. And now you are acknowledging an entourage of people that brought you here.
why we don't get taught all of this? Like with me, it's the first time hearing this. I've never heard of that, but why we don't get taught of such? Or us African people now, we're starting to lose our beliefs, our culture. We're more of Western now.
I would say we are having this conversation, Cyril, and thanks to people like you, because you young people are questioning, seeking, but also questioning us, the adults. And when you consider the history of this country, yes, there was an intentional removal to our indigenous knowledge systems. But colonization is about taking who you are off and bringing the colonizers' ways of being into the space.
Divide and conquer.
Yes. Take off your name, who you are, take off the things that you know, your indigenous knowledge system, wipe them out, and they teach you their culture, and then you slowly forget.
So
We had forgotten and we are remembering.
So this makes us weak people when it comes to
You would say that.
being
Yes.
spiritual people.
Yes. The effects of that, when we totally embrace the other person's way of being, that means you don't care about yourself, or you can't tap into your own strength. And the other person's way of being will never strengthen you.
So what's the difference between a family constellation facilitator and a therapist? It's more alike. It's like it's the same thing.
Well, a therapist, for example, I mean, there are many kinds of therapies, your physiotherapist, your psychotherapist, is a training, call it a Western way of training. So you have to have those qualifications to become a therapist or to call yourself a therapist. And so it abides to certain rules and structures in order for them to help you with the treatment of that disorder that you may be bringing into the environment. Facilitating a process, in any process, there's also many kinds of facilitators. You could be facilitating a group process on something else, youth development, whatever, and facilitating a healing process. And even those, they come in different forms. A family constellation facilitator is a specific training that was formed by a person that lived amongst the Zulu people of South Africa. The person had come from Germany, believe it or not. And he was a priest, a Catholic priest, who worked and lived amongst the Zulu people of South Africa, here at home, and watched the way families bring harmony within their sphere, communities at large bringing harmony, how they resolve problems, how they elect and respect, leaders within the community and within the nation. And I am happy to say that, when you look at the Zulu culture and you find it in your Cameroon, in your Congo, in your Zambia, in your, these ways of being, is because they're informed by people observing nature and the harmony of nature. So the gentleman's name was called Bert Hellinger.
Bert
Hellinger.
Shout out to Bert Hellinger.
And he's passed now. So he was a Catholic priest, lived in amongst the Zulus, and went back to Germany. And when he went back to Germany, he left the priesthood and went and studied psychotherapy. And he studied a lot around family therapy, the Western way. And he took all of that when he became intentional about healing people, but also healing the history of Germans and their Holocaust experiences against the Jews, and just healing the generations that have suffered. And he then somehow tapped into the memory of what he observed amongst the Zulu people. And he shaped his way of healing to something he called family systems and constellations. Yeah.
So how does one become a family constellation facilitator?
Yes.
Can I go to varsity, or how can I be?
There are trainings. So yes, back in Germany when he was doing this, a lot of even psychotherapists themselves, people were coaching, and different people started asking him to teach them, to train them. And so he had to design some form of a training, and those trainees became trainers. And a few years ago, someone was reminding me that it was 14 years ago that we worked together. And around that time, there were people that, a South African and 2 people that put together a training for family constellation processes. And even the guest facilitator trainers that came from Germany and other parts of the world who were trained by Bert Hellinger noticed that in South Africa specifically, many of the trainees get this because we live amongst the system that is indigenous, that acknowledges the harmony of nature, humanity, Ubuntu. We live it, So the training had mixed races, So the family constellation facilitators are a mix of South Africans in South Africa. It is in the reconnecting with the spirit, the soul knowing, cellular memory, in realizing and recognizing that my spirit is leading me to do this training or to be healing in this way. So you can go to any other healing. Yes, it's not in a university right now, but the trainers and training is.
So it's sort of a calling.
You could call it that, because people who end up doing family constellation facilitators really have expressed that, in my presence at least, that I was seeking, and when I started this training, I realized that I didn't need this other thing, but I needed this. And it felt like it's bigger than me, but it has brought harmony to me, or I've seen the power of it, or others start by going to a family constellation process for their own healing. And then they realize that this thing is calling me. And then they ask about trainings. I'm not a trainer in family constellation. I just facilitate the process, but I can guide you to the trainers.
Okay. So, years back, I had a friend who committed suicide. And recently, this guy was my inspiration, Ore Creek, famous as a musician. He committed suicide. So I know, like, most of the people that come to you are vulnerable, they need help or guidance. So what's your take on suicide? Is it a spiritual war? Is it demonic, or what is it?
And the last question, I would start with the last question. Is it a spiritual war or demonic? In the indigenous knowledge systems, there's no knowing of what is demonic. The demonic and evil is in religions, right? So I'm going to put that aside.
Okay.
Spiritual war thing is a language of Christianity and religion. There's a knowing that there's the other side of anything, and everything has the other side of the same coin, right? Good and bad, warm and cold, night and day. The indigenous knowledge system has that, right? So to answer your second part of the question, the first part of the question is, what is suicide? It is something that we all are to take it seriously, because somebody who's speaking about suicide, somebody who is attempting suicide, they are actually at a point in their mental feeling, in their emotional feelings, that is seeking something. There's a disorder there's a dis-ease, there's a disturbance. And I'm not saying there's a disease, there's a dis-ease. In this life, we are supposed to be moving with ease. And so the minute I'm feeling uneasy, and uneasiness could be just a momentary thing. And if I'm your friend or you are my friend, I would engage you. Like, today I'm not feeling good, we need to pay attention to those. And when something moves to a dis-ease, is bigger than just uneasy. Because uneasy is because maybe this room is warm or it's too hot, I'm uneasy. Or somebody walked in with a negative vibe, I'm uneasy. But when I start to be uneasy for a long time, then it's a dis-ease that needs to be attended to. So we call it a disease and we go to a doctor. You call it a disease and you go to a therapist. You know? And yet we know that the body has a capacity to heal itself. Right? So if I were to say I have a dis-ease, and I stop and say, where does it come from? Then I'm calling my spiritual self, my soul self, my higher self to guide me of where do I go, where to go. So when I cannot do that for myself, and you can see that I am not myself, it's important that we listen. We listen to our friends, we listen to our children, we listen to our nieces, our cousins, we listen in order to prevent, in order to support them towards healing. If you know that this life is about good expression, you are to care when somebody is feeling uneasy or in a dis-ease position and desire to support them.
Okay.
So we are to take those things seriously.
Yeah.
When a matriculant is concerned about their matric exams and we take it lightly, we are ignoring something that may be serious.
Yeah. That's the reason why my friend committed suicide. Because when we were doing our final year matric, like she looked like, alright, we didn't see what was inside, but as soon as we got our results, and then she committed suicide. But also, like, those people who suffer from like depression or want to commit suicide, you can't see. They're not open to it. They have a smile on, but maybe when they get home alone, that's when they have to deal with such.
And it's an interesting question, Cyril, because yes, we may invite ourselves to be paying attention, right? But I also want to speak to those that are depressed, stressed by something, and so on. That when I'm referring to that dis-ease, I'm saying we are to pay attention to our own selves and make sure, not make sure, because sometimes, being depressed means you are hopeless and powerless and, helpless. You feel, you've concluded that you are helpless. But I want to encourage people to seek and speak to someone. I used to do youth development work, and I've always said, even to parents, I also have to do parent-to-parent discussion. Every child, especially when they're young, every child has to have someone they can speak to. Every person has to have someone that they trust, that they can speak to. We are all have to have someone that we trust, that we can speak to. So I'm calling on all of us who carry some stress, some depression. And I'm emphasizing stress because currently, there's an economical downward spiral that everybody is stressed.
Yeah.
It's important that you have someone you can speak to, someone you trust, and someone that respects you. when we invite ourselves to a space like that, I'm safe, this person will listen to me. They may not have a solution, but it's another pair of ears that may be able to think of what to do on your behalf, because they are not in your position as yet. They are stronger, and together the two of you makes you a little bit stronger. And let's remember that whenever 2 or 3 are gathered, there's also other energies. Remember, behind you stands your parents, and behind them stands their parents. So when you and I start speaking, something greater than us is at work. So let's believe in that, let's trust in that, and speak to someone.
So committing suicide is not a solution.
I don't know if it is or not. I would say, what led to that? What is it that leads someone to saying, I'm ending it here? And I don't judge it. That I want to say, because we are all going to die. Death is the other side of life. Talk of the other side of the same coin. Birth and death is just the other side of. So we are going to die. I died by car accident. I can blame the person who knocked me down. What if that was my way? We are one. We are a collective. Here, you are me, I am you, and maybe we'll take another podcast to discuss that too. But it's part of this life. If you shoot me dead, and thank God in South Africa, there's no death penalty for murder, because it doesn't resolve anything. So with suicide too, I was going to die. If I die through my own hand, are the people around going to blame me, or do they blame themselves? The thing is, I was in a desperate situation for a moment, and I didn't find a way out. I didn't speak to someone. I didn't find someone who could listen to me, and whatever. And I've also seen people who have lost people in that way. And they find peace, because there's usually a reason why that happened. In your case, you are seeking, you're seeking to understand spirituality. It will benefit you. That incident, that thing that happened to your friend has woken you up to question life. So to me, it looks like all things have a gift in this planet when we acknowledge.
Either good or bad.
There's good and there's bad, but all of it gives us something. Warm reminds me of cold, and cold reminds me that I can put fire together and be warm. Dark reminds me that there will be sunshine.
Yeah, that's powerful. Once again, shout out to Thozi Clothing. They are the main sponsors of the podcast. So in every episode, I'm going to be wearing clothing from Thozi Clothing. They make clothes for spiritual people, traditional people. So check them out, support them, Thozi Clothing, Facebook, Instagram. And then make sure you hit the like button, subscribe for the algorithm so that more people can watch this podcast. And then to wrap it up, I want to know, what's the perfect word for you? When you're sitting down and say, this is a perfect word for me. What's that for you? Can you look at that?
When there's harmony, first harmony within ourselves, when we have that, we have a chance of spreading that. Take love, for instance, the vibration of love, rubs off to others. When you think of a smile, when you smile, another person smiles. So for me, the perfect world would be to see more of that. We can serve one another, knowing that my lighting your candle does not take away the light from me.
That's
Thank
powerful. Yeah, that's powerful. So for people who wanna get hold of you, who's seeking for your guidance, or who want to know more about family constellation facilitation, tell us, where do they find you? Are you on Facebook? Contact details, where do they find you? You can look at the camera.
My name is Thozi Theko, and on Facebook I'm Thozi Theko. A little bit of Instagram. My Gmail account, if you want to write me an email, is thozi.theko@gmail.com. And I would say that's the way of finding me. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks a lot, spiritual people. This has been an insightful episode. Hopefully, write there in the comment if you need a part 2 of this. And then, thanks a lot.